Hello, friends, and welcome to Story Time. Today we're going to be reading the book, Arnie the Doughnut. This book is written and illustrated by Laurie Keller. So this is the front cover, this is the back cover, and this is the spine. And the spine says, Arnie the Doughnut. And let's see what kind of things are on the cover. Let's go take a look, okay? Let's get started. This book has a lot of little creatures that like to say things, and I'm going to be reading them over here. Do you see how the words are really small? Those are the words that aren't really part of the words of the book, but they're still kind of silly and important for us to read. So this one says, "Hi, Arnie. Arnie's one crazy donut. Look at our Arnie on the cover of his own book." This one says, "I remember when he was just a ball of dough." This one says, "Wee wee." This one says, "I'm sorry, but that girl cannot cook." And this one says, I know, it's just a figure of speech." What she was saying, I remember when he was just a ball of dough. And then the cook says, "She had a little help from me." And here Arnie says, "That's me." This is the title page, Arnie the Doughnut, cooked up by Laurie Keller. Here it says, "Downtown bakery, home of the best donuts around. Closed. Henry Holt and Company, New York. Antiques, closed. Why do you need a lava lamp at this hour anyway?" Whoa, look like they're adding in sugar and baking powder. Into a bowl, there's flour. Here are some protesters outside. They said, "Ban the donut. Donuts cause cavities." And then this lady says, "They're out there again." Arnie turned out to be just the kind of donut he'd hoped for. Chocolate covered with bright colored candy sprinkles. "Look at all my sprinkles. There must be 1,000,000 of them." And this guy says, "Actually, there are only 135, but I'm not going to spoil it for him." He was made very early in the morning at the Doughnut Downtown Bakery, home of the best donuts around. Get it? Round? Because we're round. This guy says, "Give me a minute. I'm good at these." Arnie was proud to be one of the best. He knew that people all over town made special trips to his bakery to buy donuts of their very own. As Arnie sat on the tray, which had just been placed in the donut case, he took a moment to reflect on the amazing things that had happened to him that morning. First, he was cut into a ring. Then he was deep fried. Then he was cooled. Then he was iced. Then he was sprinkled. And lastly, he was named. He got the name Arnie. Arnie looked around and saw all sorts of donuts sitting nearby. There's crullers, which are French. This one says, "Bonjour, madame." This one says, "Howdy, Frenchie." Powdered. "Oh dear, I'm so greasy," putting on some powdered sugar. Square donut, the extremely rare square donut. Chocolate zebra. Long John. I prefer Long Jonathan. Cinnamon twist, who's dancing to the twist. Donut holes. This one is a jelly filled. This one is, it's not brain silly, it's jelly. He thought this guy said, his brains are oozing out. And he said, no, it's not brains, it's just jelly. Ooh, is it brains? Nah, it's jelly. Double checking. Eclair. This one is plain, and this one is iced chocolate. This one says, a little blue icing would be fabulous on you. And he's trying to put blue icing on the plain donut. This is cream filled. This is the bear claw. Grrr. The glazed, the apple fritter, the steel belted radial donut. Actually, I think that's just a tire. This one says various muffins. He tried to strike up a conversation with an apple fritter on the next tray over, but she didn't really seem to want to talk. He said, "How about that deep fryer? Any relation to Larry Fritter? Want to count my sprinkles?" And she's not really answering him. It is rather early. Maybe she's not a morning donut, Arnie supposed. It was 6 a.m. and the baker had just hung the open sign on the window. Arnie was fascinated as he watched customers stream into the bakery. One by one, donuts were chosen, placed in paper bags, and whisked away with their new owners. Some went by the dozen in giant boxes. Look, all these people are coming in. Must have donuts. This one says, donut make me feel good wheel. This one says, I've been sent to collect the tasty, bright, sweet, crystal-coated cake disc. Is this the proper coordinate? That's an alien, isn't it? And this one says, do you promise to love, honor, and cherish this donut until the very last bite? And the bride says, I do. This girl says, look, Grandma, this one matches your dress. That was a zebra donut right here. This is so exciting, said Arnie. I wonder who will choose me. Just then, Arnie looked up and saw a man pointing right at him. Moi? Moi is the French word for me. Before he could say another word, he was pulled from the tray and placed in a paper bag of his very own. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Bing. Have a nice day, Arnie heard the baker say to the man. Mr. Bing, that's a fine name, Arnie decided. I can hardly wait to meet him. So he was picturing a grand exit. This is the grand exit that he was picturing with a goodbye Arnie signs and a band, the apple fritter crying. I should have talked to him when I had the chance. But really, that's not how he left. That's just his imagination. The ride to Mr. Bing's apartment was a little bumpy. Arnie was grateful for the soft napkin the baker had so thoughtfully placed underneath him in the bag. He had never ridden in a car before, and he wished he could look out the window and see all the sights. But more than anything, he wished he could meet Mr. Bing. Why does he keep me in this bag? Arnie wondered. Finally, the car came to a stop, and they were home. Mr. Bing carefully removed Arnie from the paper bag and placed him on a clean, shiny plate. What a handsome plate, Arnie said to himself. I'm not crazy about the design. I prefer a more modern look, but it's nothing a little paint couldn't fix. Mr. Bing gently lifted Arnie from his new plate. Isn't that cute? Thought Arnie as he closed his eyes and smiled. He wants to hold me. As Arnie relaxed in Mr. Bing's hand, he felt himself moving higher and higher and higher away from the plate. When he opened his eyes to see where he was going, he discovered that he was straight to Mr. Bing's open mouth. Oh no! What are you doing? Shouted Arnie. Oh my goodness, look, he was just holding, he wasn't going inside the mouth. Mr. Bing was stunned. He dropped Arnie back onto the plate. I was gonna to eat you, he replied in shock. Eat me? Arnie shrieked, his sprinkles flying everywhere. Why would you do a thing like that? Do you make a habit of eating all your house guests? No, of course not. So why then did it suddenly occur to you to eat me? Arnie demanded. Well, because you're a donut. That's what donuts are for, to eat. Do you mean to tell me you've done this before? Yes, I eat a donut every day, Mr. Bing said sheepishly. Arnie froze. He felt sick and frightened. I'd better get out of here before he tries to eat me again. And he felt angry. Well, that explains why my friends never write or call. They've probably been eaten. He thought for a moment. I must put a stop to this right away. I'll call the bakery and warn the others. Whoever's left, that is. Arnie knew that there was no time to waste and that he needed to be very sneaky in order to keep his plan from Mr. Bing. He turned to Mr. Bing and he said in his sweetest voice, Excuse me, sir, but I don't believe we've been properly introduced. My name is Arnie. Hello, Arnie, Mr. Bing stammered. I'm Mr. Bing, it's nice to eat you. I mean, meet you. Well, he was still shocked to be talking to a donut. Mr. Bing, would you be a dear and allow me to use your telephone? Arnie asked, extra politely. Oh, well, okay, said Mr. Bing, and he handed Arnie the phone. As quickly as he could, Arnie dialed the number to the bakery. The bakery answered the phone. Downtown Bakery, home of the best. Mr. Baker Man, Arnie frantically whispered. This is Arnie the Doughnut. Do you remember me? You made me at 5:15 this morning, and I was bought about 20 minutes ago by a man who goes by the name of Mr. Bing. Yes, Arnie, the baker answered. What can I do for you? Now, I don't want to alarm you, said Arnie, but just moments ago that man tried to eat me. And not only that, he claims to have eaten hundreds of us. I'm going to make a run for it, but I wanted to warn you so that if you see him coming into the bakery again, you can stop him. Oh my, Arnie, said the baker. I thought you understood. That's why I make donuts, for people to eat. I can't believe it, Arnie gasped. Are the other donuts aware of this arrangement? Oh my goodness, he is really showing signs of donut shock. Severe sprinkle loss, overall dazed expression. Look at those eyes, bugged out eyeballs, popped up eyebrow sprinkle. Feels like someone punched a hole right through him. And weak in the knees. Well, I think so, the baker said. Let me ask them to make sure. The baker yelled to the other donuts, do you donuts know that you're going to be eaten? And they said, is he going a little cuckoo? Yes, we know, the donut shouted back. We're delicious. We're very popular. People love us. C'est magnifique. Try us for yourself. Did you hear that, Arnie? The baker asked. Arnie was crushed. The phone dropped from his hand. He'd heard all he needed to hear. Arnie forgot all about his plan to escape. He collapsed back onto the plate, glanced up at Mr. Bing, and muttered, all right, then, let's get this over with. Go ahead and eat me. Mr. Bing gazed down at Arnie. I'm not gonna eat you, Arnie, he said reassuringly. I just wouldn't feel right about it now. Oh, really? Arnie said with a huge sigh of relief. Well, I'm glad to see that you've come to your senses. But since I'm not going to eat you, Mr. Bing continued, we'll have to figure out something to do with you. I paid good money for you. I don't want to be wasteful. Of course not, Arnie agreed. What we need to do is make a list of things I can do with you instead of eating you. Between the two of us, I know we'll come up with a good plan. Great idea, Mr. Bing, Arnie said. This will be a breeze. I bet I'm good at lots of stuff. They both feverishly wrote down their ideas. When they were finished, Mr. Bing asked, would you like to read yours first? Sure thing, Mr. Bing. So look, they're both writing down their ideas for what Arnie can do instead of getting eaten. Mr. Bing can do with me instead of eating me. Do you need a ballroom dance partner? No, I don't dance. You could use a personal fitness trainer. I get too sweaty. How about a portrait painter? No, heavens, no. Would you like me to entertain at your parties? I don't like throwing parties. I could be your chauffeur. Chauffeur is someone who drives a car. But you can't see over the steering wheel. I'd make a great bodyguard. Who could you protect me from? A cookie? All righty, Mr. Bing, said Arnie. Let's hear what you came up with. Okie dokie, he replied. I just know you'll like some of these. Things I can do with Arnie instead of eating him. I could use you as a pin cushion. Ooh, too painful. How about an air freshener for my car? How about not? Look how silly he would be as an air freshener. Would you like to be a picture frame? I don't imagine so. I need a new bowling ball. Well, don't look at me. You'd make a fine paperweight. Boring. How about a doorstop? Some doorstop is something that holds open the door. Try again. But there was nothing else on Mr. Bing's list. They were both completely out of ideas. Arnie and Mr. Bing were exhausted. They felt terribly disappointed. After a few minutes of awkward silence, Mr. Bing finally spoke. I'm sorry, Arnie, but it's clear we can't agree on anything for you to do around here. This is difficult for me to say, but I think it would be best if you found another home. I know, said Arnie, fighting back tears. I'll just be on my way then. Is it all right if I keep this napkin to pack up all my loose sprinkles? Of course, Mr. Bing replied, sadly. As soon as I get a job, I'll pay you back the money you spent on me. That's not necessary, Arnie. Arnie shook Mr. Bing's hand and thanked him for his kindness. Mr. Bing opened the door, and as Arnie left, he paused and said, I guess donuts really are only good for eating, aren't they? They waved goodbye, and Arnie was gone. Mr. Bing stood at the window and watched as Arnie walked away. He walked past the flower beds, the mailboxes, and the apartment manager's office. Look, he said, remember how happy I was at the beginning of the story? He passed the tennis court, the swimming pool, and the clubhouse. Here it says, sometimes life feels like a big bug on the head. But when Arnie reached the No Dogs Allowed sign at the end of the driveway, Mr. Bing suddenly came up with a new idea. There's a light bulb. He came up with a new idea. Arnie, wait up, yelled Mr. Bing as he ran after him. Arnie turned back and stopped. When Mr. Bing caught up with him, he was out of breath. I can't believe I didn't think of this earlier, Mr. Bing panted. Arnie, I've always wanted a dog and could never have one because they're not allowed here. But there's no sign that says no donuts allowed. Arnie perked up when he realized what Mr. Bing was thinking. Would you like to take walks and play fetch? Mr. Bing asked excitedly. You bet I would. Can you do tricks like rolling over? Rolling over? Look at me. I was made for rolling over. Well, then there's only one thing left to ask. Arnie, will you be my donut dog? Oh, Mr. Bing, I would love to be your donut dog. From that moment on, Arnie and Mr. Bing were inseparable. Arnie liked being a donut dog even better than he liked being a donut. Look, he's walking him. He's running. He's sitting in the back of the seat with him. They're going to watch the sunset together. They're playing fetch. He went through a short phase of chewing on furniture and barking at the mailman. But after a crash course in obedience school, he graduated first in his class. This person says, is that a donut dog? You're so sticky. Yes, you are. What a darling dog. I love that, Arnie. Got a napkin? Everywhere the two of them went, people would stop to pet Arnie. No one had ever seen a donut dog before. Arnie and Mr. Bing had so much fun together. Arnie was the best pet Mr. Bing could ever have hoped for, and Mr. Bing was Arnie's best friend. And look, they're going to sleep. He's on a little plate. And here it has a sign that says beware of dog, but instead of dog, they changed it to add donut. So it's beware of donut. The end. Thanks for joining me for story time as we read this really silly book, Arnie the Doughnut by Laurie Keller. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.